All right, here we go. We have actor Khalil Kain in the house.
What's happening, y'all?
Hey, man, huge fan.
Thanks.
Obviously, I saw Juice in the theaters. Incredible film. Still a classic to this day.
Yeah.
Still a classic to this day, and you had one of the main roles in it. So let's go ahead and get into all that. But before we actually talk about the movie, your dad is actually Gylan Kain from The Last Poets.
Yes. Well, he's one of the original Last Poets. It was Gylan Kain, Felipe Luciano, and David Nelson. Abiodun, some of the other cats came in after. So yeah. There's definitely a legacy there also, culturally,
right,
so to speak.
Right, and The Last Poets, were kind of the precursors to rappers in a way.
Yeah, without a doubt. It was an interesting childhood, kind of traveling around a little bit. There was a space uptown called the East Wind that he had that was very similar to, like the Shrine, Femi Kuti. So there were a lot of people that came through there, Panthers would be up in there, Young Lords would be up in there, Gil Scott-Heron was up in there, Amiri Baraka, all people would come up and just get up and perform. Ntozake Shange, so hearing these kinds of things at a very young age was something that kind of I've been carrying around in my back pocket for all these years.
Well, yeah, I feel that along with Gil Scott-Heron, the Last Poets were sort of like the main voices, the main musical voices, for social change during that era.
Yeah, I don't know. With Pops, I think it was more a matter of self-expression. Even now, I think it's important for people to kind of find their voice. With the advent of social media, I think everybody kind of feels like they have the freedom to have a voice, but with everybody watching, now I think we sort of, censor ourselves a little more because there's such a big audience, because so many people are watching on a daily basis. So I think back then there was a lot less self-censorship, and it was a way for a young man, speaking of my father, speaking of somebody like Felipe Luciano, who I still know very well, to get it off, say what was burning in their gut, and say it to people that were really listening and about it,
No, absolutely. And your mom is actually Chinese.
She's half Chinese, yeah.
Half Chinese?
Yeah,
okay,
so
half black, half Chinese?
My grandfather, Lam Kui, yeah, he's Cantonese. He was. Man lived to 100,
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what was, in these days, in the Barack Obama era, and, with what's happening today in society, a mixed kid is very common. But back then, it was a little bit more rare.
I don't know. I think that's a myth perpetuated by a government that wants to keep the races separated. One of the things I noticed, I grew up in New York City. When I moved to Los Angeles, and I lived in Los Angeles for quite some time, it was one of the most segregated cities I had ever lived in, having grown up like in the East Village of Manhattan. So it was shocking to me how it was separated by income, it was separated by race, it was separated by sort of position and job. If you're living in Los Angeles and you're not in the industry in any way, you're kind of a pariah. It's weird, like what do we have to talk about, Whereas growing up in New York, everybody did everything. So it was a little bit of a different way of socializing. And even back then when I was a kid, I knew plenty of mixed kids. Again, growing up in the East Village, on my block alone, there was Ukrainian kids, Puerto Rican kids, black kids, white kids, Italian kids, Irish kids, it was mixed, you know. Bobby Walsh, one of my best friends when I was a kid, his mother was Italian, his father was Irish, and to both of their families, that he was a mixed kid.
Well, yeah, I mean, I actually live in both places these days, but I mean, the one thing that I think New York has that like a place like LA doesn't have is that everybody in New York takes the train.
Yeah.
So you're kind of forced to be around
I
everybody.
took the train here today.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas in LA, there is public transportation, but not really.
Yeah, but again, there's segregation and judgment. If somebody saw me on the subway in LA, like there would be an intervention. They would be like, "Oh, what's up? You all right, bro? You all right?" You know, I'm like, "Come on, man, calm down. Everything's cool."